One professional baseball league to cover the European continent. That's what we're looking at today. Similar to two recent videos I've done, one where we build up MLB from scratch, and the other where MLB adds 10 teams in Latin America. Only this one is not an MLB expansion plan. It's only in Europe, and it's actually more realistic. I think this could easily happen one day in the not too distant future. It wouldn't be on the scale of MLB or NPB or anything close to that. The closest league in comparison would be the Australian Baseball League, with 8 teams spanning across 3 time zones, and that league is doing just fine. But we'd go into this expecting a little more success than the ABL has had. There may have already been plans for this before. From time to time I'll see something on the internet about the launch of a Euro-wide pro baseball league coming soon, and then it never happens. If it really was being planned, it wasn't thought out very well. It involves cities that don't even have baseball fields. If you ever see anything about that, don't take it seriously. But a European professional baseball league is something that could work if done correctly. It might even work if they tried it out right now, involving a few certain countries. But it would be risky, and I'd say they're 10 years away from this being a reality. The first thing we'd need to think about is where to start this league. Traditionally, the big two of European baseball has been the Netherlands and Italy. The pro-Dutch league, the Honkbalhoofdklasse, was founded exactly 100 years ago, and the Netherlands gets immigration from its Caribbean possessions of Curaçao and Aruba, which are known for producing major league talent. The Italian league has been running since just after World War II, and a small baseball culture has developed in the country, mostly in the north. Baseball isn't that big in either country, but it has enough support to attract crowds of paying spectators to see teams of paid professional athletes. If each country had one team to get behind, the crowds would be larger. The games would more likely be shown on TV. But 2 teams are not enough to get a league started, so more countries need to be involved. Therefore, we can expand it to a big 4: Netherlands, Italy, Germany, and the Czech Republic. Every year, 8 teams from around Europe meet in the European Champions Cup to determine the best baseball club on the continent, and this year's edition featured 2 teams from each of the 4 leagues of those countries, so it's safe to say that right now the leagues of those 4 countries are the highest levels in Europe. And before you point out that some other European country beat Germany or Czech Republic one time, remember we're talking about the league, not the national team. European national teams are often stocked with American-born players who spend their summers in the U.S. minor leagues. Not only do these 4 countries have the highest level of play within their country, they also do the best at attracting a crowd. Watching baseball in Europe, it often feels like watching your dad's softball games as a kid. You've got the players' wives gathered around talking to each other, the players' kids running around playing their own games, and that's about it. In the German and Czech leagues you see a lot of that too, but there are others who are there just to take in a game, and their attention is focused on the field. Not a large audience, but something to build on. We'll call this league the EBL from here on out, though if you've got a better name for it, mention it in the comments. When we create the EBL, the present leagues would still exist. It would not be good to have just one team for the entire country and nothing else. Some would say to just promote the league champion of each country to the EBL every year and it would be sort of a Champions League. But I think it's better to have the same teams involved year after year so that fans across Europe can become familiar with the teams and create rivalries. Instead, I would have the existing league serve as the farm system for each EBL team. For example, the team in the Netherlands could send down or call up players from any one of its 9 Dutch clubs, so the team based in the Netherlands would be an all-star team of players from the Dutch league. This is what the new league would look like at first. My original intent was to select cities from each country, but with these 4 countries it's not clear where to put the teams. The Dutch league is dominated by teams from Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and those are the country's 2 largest cities. The best ballpark, however, is in Haarlem. In Italy, baseball is biggest in the north, in and around the city of Bologna, but the largest stadium and the most loyal fans can be found in the Rome suburb of Nettuno. In Germany, I'm told that Heidenheim has the best fans, but it's a city of just 50,000. Regensburg has the largest stadium, which will be the host for next month's WBC qualifier, but it's also a small city. Berlin is Germany's largest city, but baseball gets no attention there. Prague and Brno are the 2 biggest cities in the Czech Republic. Prague is the capital and the better-known city, but Brno is better known for baseball. In fact, the Czech Series, which starts today, features 2 teams from Brno. I think it would be important to not just go with the country's largest city, but the one where people have shown the most interest in baseball. They've got some history with the sport, and this new league would be a chance to grow what they've already started. But at the same time, you don't want it to be too small of a city because you don't want to be limited to a small population. You want the league to grow. Each country will have to decide which city is most deserving of an EBL club, but I'll just list the countries here. When we expand this league into countries where baseball is not so well known, we'll go to the major cities. Before starting this league, the crowd size in the existing leagues will have to increase first, to the point where crowds of over 1,000 are not rare anymore. They don't need to average over 1,000, but at least for the big games they need 4-digit attendance. That way we can expect the new European League to average over 1,000. They're going to be traveling from one country to another, so they need to make money to cover travel expenses, among other things. And the leagues will have to become fully professional. Right now, the Dutch and Italian leagues pay a decent in-season salary. If my information is correct, the German league pays some but not all players, so it's not clear whether to define the league as professional or not. The Czech league is amateur. I think the only players that get paid there are the foreign players, but I could be wrong about that. And when I say foreign players, I mean non-European players. For example, in the German league there are a couple players from Finland. They do not count toward the limit on foreign players there. The ones defined as foreign players come from North America, the Caribbean, or sometimes Asia. Since this league would be professional and make more money than the Dutch, Italian, German, and Czech leagues do now, they would be able to lure away better talent from the U.S. minor leagues. Players that have reached the AA or AAA level but have no hope of reaching the major league level, and can make more money playing in Europe. Probably a few ex-major leaguers too. Not to mention the best players from within each country on a single team. The quality of play would be much greater than what we see in European baseball now. The EBO would only play on weekends as the domestic leagues currently do. They play almost entirely day games, so the EBO could play at night, so they're not in competition. All those who play ball during the day could help to fill the stadium for an EBO game at night. Okay, so now we've got a professional league with 4 teams in 4 different countries. The talent level is pretty good. Crowds of over 1,000 are showing up at every game every weekend. Now Europe's most famous cities want a piece of the action. So now we go with the 2-team expansion. One team would go to London, the other in Paris. Yes, I know there's another country where baseball does a little better than France or the UK, and they'll get a team in the next round of expansion. But I'll assume that the league will be anxious to get a team in Europe's 2 most famous cities. Both cities will need new stadiums, in the city or somewhere nearby. Remember, these won't be major league-sized stadiums, so the cost won't be outrageous, and it won't take up as much space. Just a ballpark with a few thousand seats. As for talent level, the French league isn't too far behind the other 4. They'd be able to keep up, and while the majority of these teams' players will come from their own country, players will be free to sign with teams in other countries. So not having the best talent from your own country doesn't mean you can't put together a successful EBL team. The London team, however, would be at a big disadvantage when it comes to domestic talent. The British league lags well behind the other 5, but a team in London would be an attractive destination for players from North America, just as the Australian league has become in the winter. And they'd make up for their lack of domestic talent by signing players from the Major League system. The London team would do alright in attendance. There aren't that many baseball fans in the UK, but enough to fill a small stadium on weekends. Paris would be a little risky. They might have trouble getting 1,000+ fans in the ballpark on a regular basis. But I figure if MLB is planning on hosting games there in front of 50,000 fans in just a few years, the EBL can manage 1,000 fans a game. Okay, now we've got 6, and we're ready to stretch out the boundaries a little bit. First of all, we have to go to Madrid. The Spanish Baseball League is a higher level league than the one in Britain, about the same as the French League, and there's more interest in the Spanish League than either the British or French leagues. That's mainly due to the number of immigrants from the Caribbean, and this new EBL team with a higher quality of play than the Spanish League would attract even more, so crowd sizes would be good. One problem they've had, though, is that baseball is mostly seen as a sport for Caribbean immigrants, and it's hard to find Spaniards with an interest in the sport. An EBL team in Madrid might be able to bridge the gap, or they might just have a crowd full of fans from across the Atlantic. You could make a strong argument for putting a team in Madrid before putting one in Paris. If they think a team will work in Paris, they'll go there first. If they don't have enough local support in Paris, they'll try Madrid first. For the other city in this round of expansion, I want to go to a completely different part of Europe, a major city with no other teams nearby, and for that we go with Stockholm. Now we're in a place with very little interest in baseball. The national team and the domestic league are far behind the countries already present in the EBL, and it's a cold, snowy place, not one we'd normally associate with baseball. You figure by now this league has gained some kind of reputation throughout the continent, enough to attract the curiosity of sports fans everywhere. Stockholm is a major city in Europe, and people there like to watch sports in the summer. This would not only be Sweden's team, but a team for all Nordic countries. They'd get the best players from Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark. Still, that wouldn't be enough to catch up to the other teams. This club would have to try and get players from other European countries, and sign good foreign talent. And the weather, it wouldn't be an issue. Most European leagues now don't play into the fall. Their seasons are done by the end of summer, and the EBL would do the same. Not only to avoid the winter weather, but also I think it would be important to keep the season short so fans don't lose interest. The season could run from May 1st to the end of July, playoffs in August, and a champion is crowned by the 1st of September. This is what we've got now, an 8-team league covering most parts of Europe. Not too big, not too small. Seems like a good place to stop. After all, I said the best league to compare it with would be the Australian Baseball League, and that's comprised of 8 teams. But just as the Australian League is thinking about expanding to 10 someday, let's imagine the EBL is doing well, averaging a few thousand fans a game, broadcast on TV, and now they can afford a larger travel budget. So we're going to add 2 more teams. And the first one will be in Tel Aviv. Right, it's not even in Europe, but if you followed European baseball, you'll know that Israel's national team competes with Europe's national teams. In fact, that's how they qualified for the Olympics, by beating out all the European teams. It's about a 5-hour flight from Tel Aviv to London, the longest flight any team would have to make. And remember, this would be weekends only, so flight time is not as big of an issue. Israelis have shown very little interest in baseball, even though a lot of effort has been put into growing the sport there. But this might be enough to change their attitude towards the game. Watching a team full of American-born Jews represent their country hasn't sparked much interest, and a domestic league dominated by foreign players folded after one season. But having one team to root for going up against teams from major European cities could sound a lot more appealing to the casual sports fan. The Israeli Baseball League will inevitably be relaunched in the next few years, albeit a much less ambitious version than the last one. And with several ex-Major League players being involved with Israeli baseball, the talent there should develop to be somewhat on par with the best countries in Europe, and maybe Ian Kinsler could be the Tel Aviv team's first manager. We'll need one more team, and because Tel Aviv is a risky one, we go with a safer and closer choice for the last city. The last team I'd put in Brussels. Baseball actually does pretty well in Belgium. They've got a competitive domestic league that small crowds of people show up to watch. The Belgium national team is ranked 24th in the world, just behind Britain and France. They'd be able to keep up. In the early years of the EBL, I'd be counting on Belgian fans to support the teams in the Netherlands and Paris. But after a while, if the league is getting big enough and ready for a 10th team, Brussels would be ready for a team of its own. And that's where I'll stop. The 10 teams of the European Baseball League are the Netherlands, Italy, Germany, Czech Republic, cities to be decided for those 4, London, Paris, Madrid, Stockholm, Tel Aviv, and Brussels. Knowing it's Europe, they'll probably have a secondary league with teams from cities of all European countries, and they'll do promotion and relegation between the 2 leagues. So if you're hoping for a team in Poland or Croatia, that's where you'll find them. And that's it. So how would you put together an MLB of Europe? What would you name the league? What would you name the teams? Which teams do you think would be the most competitive? And which ones would be in danger of relegation every year? Let us know in the comments. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.